Hello, hello. How is everybody doing? It is Thursday. Happy Thursday, everyone. It's been a little while since I have been here on Periscope, and my username used to be Beautiful Confident, and we're changing it now to Diabetes Advisor so that you know pretty much exactly what I do. So let me wait a few seconds to see who all joins. Well, welcome, Shoshana. How are you? We're gonna be switching things a bit here. Good morning, because we want to start gearing up for a new program that we're going to be promoting. It is called Diabetes Doesn't Define Me. It's a coaching program specifically created for women so that they can go from feeling overwhelmed and defeated, unhealthy, to feeling amazing, healthy, strong, powerful, and beautiful and confident so that they can create the life they deserve and become the artists of their own life, because we all can become the artists of our own life. So for those of you that have never seen me before, my name is Maria Morales, and I am the creator of the Life Artist Formula and the founder of the Beautiful and Confident Movement for Women, where I believe that every woman that has diabetes or prediabetes or even PCOS deserves to live a life where she feels healthy, she is healthy, she feels emotionally balanced, she feels beautiful, and she's confident to become the artist of her own life. And I am here to be your diabetes and confidence advisor, and I'm going to help you successfully manage your disease by teaching you practical physical and emotional skills that will transform your image from the inside out so that you can go from feeling overwhelmed and defeated to feeling healthy, beautiful, and powerful all over again. Because once we get diagnosed with a chronic illness, specifically diabetes, prediabetes, or PCOS, it knocks us down. We could have been way up here on our confidence level, and then all of a sudden we're way down here because we no longer feel normal. We no longer feel like we can do the things that we used to do. And we might have gained a bunch of weight. Maybe we lost a lot of weight. Depending on where you're at with your journey on this chronic illness, you might feel like you're not as pretty as you used to be. Oh, hey Nina, Joni girl, how are you? And so I am here to give you back that power, give you back that confidence. But in order to give you back all that power, you need to get knowledge. You need to educate yourself on what these diseases are about. And knowing your numbers is extremely important, and is something that we don't always understand. Hey, Marilyn McCain, you made it. So if you haven't shared this broadcast out yet, please click that share button. And I also included on the description of the video a link to join my private Facebook group, where we go a lot more in depth talking about issues that women have to face when they have diabetes, prediabetes, PCOS, or obesity. And I'm pretty sure you know somebody in your life that has any of these conditions and that is struggling tremendously to get back on track or to even get started. Thank you for sharing, Joni girl. I appreciate that. So what we're going to do today is we're going to break down what the A1C test is about. There's a lot of things that we need to know about the test, the lab work that they do for us at the doctor's office. And the A1C is a very important number. And it amazes me how many patients I talk to that don't know what an A1C level is, when that is like your report card. You know, when you go to school, when you have kids in school, you want them to bring you the report card so that you can see if they're doing well in their classes. Well, in order for you to know if you're managing your diabetes properly, you need to have your report card. And your report card is your A1C level. It's that test that they do every 3 months or every 6 months, depending on how well controlled you are. And if you're wondering why I'm talking about these things when I used to talk about makeup before, because this page was about makeup as well, is because I am a certified makeup artist, but my whole life I have been a diabetes educator and dietitian. I have been certified for a long time. I have been doing this for 13 years, and it's a huge passion of mine. And I thought, why not combine all of these expertise, skills, and knowledge and passion that I have so that I can bring you the best thing you need so that you can become who you want to be. That's it. So that's why you may see me talk a little bit about makeup here and there, but we're really going to dig deep into the issues that we face when we have a diagnosis of diabetes, pre-diabetes, PCOS, or obesity. So let's get started. So what is the A1C test? It's also called hemoglobin A1C. And what this is a test that's going to give us information on your average level of blood glucose. And blood glucose is your blood sugar, all right? In lame terms, it's the sugar in your blood. And it's going to tell us the information on how high or how low your sugar levels have been for the last 3 months. Simple as that. So just like your GPA could be 4.0 if you average A's most of your classes, then your average for the last 3 months of your blood sugars can give us kind of your GPA, if you want to call it that way, on your disease. So we can utilize this A1C test to diagnose diabetes and diagnose pre-diabetes. And diagnosing specifically type 2. Because type 1, we need to go into antibodies and other things that we need to identify to see if really is a type 1. Because this one is more of an autoimmune disease. But type 2 diabetes is more of a lifestyle disease. And it's also hereditary as well. So we can utilize the A1C test to diagnose type 2 diabetes and pre-diabetes. And it's also the test that we're going to utilize to see if we are managing diabetes properly. So it is your report card. You got to know what your A1C is. So what this is, let's break it down into what really is. Because, you know, I like to know the science behind things, the reasons, the whys, and I need to feel it and picture it in my head in order for me to understand it. So that is how I teach my patients. I'm going to paint the picture as much as possible so that you can see what it really means. Because A1C sounds like a very abstract thing and means nothing when they tell me my A1C is high. Well, all right. Well, what does that even mean? Yeah, it's my average sugar of my last 3 months, but how does that even happen? So people ask me, but how can you measure the last 3 months? You were not there with me. You were not there to test my sugars. So how do you know? Well, this is what happens. So let's think about this. It's called glycated hemoglobin. And you know your hemoglobin is part of your red blood cells, okay? And the hemoglobin is that part of your cells that's going to carry oxygen to the rest of your cells, to the rest of your body. What happens is that sugar can attach or bind to your hemoglobin red blood cells. So the A1C is going to be based on how much sugar attached to your hemoglobin. And you know you've heard hemoglobin before because that is what they use to test for anemia. And we know we always want to have high levels of hemoglobin so that we can be strong. That means we're not iron deficient and that we're not having any other issues. So now you know that your hemoglobin also gets sugar attached to it. So this is why this test is the one that's going to help us know if you've been lying to us or not. You cannot lie to your doctor about your numbers. Let me tell you what I used to see when I worked in the doctor's offices. I used to work for a pharmaceutical company for 9 years, and I was their diabetes educator. So my job was to go to doctors' offices to teach their patients, teach the doctors and the nurses how to manage and how to educate their patients with diabetes. And it was incredible how many times I will get to the parking lot and go by a car and see a patient writing down the numbers on their glucose log. So sometimes I actually stopped and said, hey, are you coming for the diabetes class? If I had a class there, and they'll be like, oh no, I didn't know there's a class. And so I will be like, yeah, well, I am a diabetes educator and I teach classes here once a month. I'm going to be starting it soon if you want to join us. And if not, then just ask your doctor when the next one is so that you can get signed up. And then I say, oh, I see that you brought your glucose log. You know, I'm like pretending I didn't see what he was doing. And they're like, oh yeah, I brought it, but I'm writing down these numbers because I have not been testing. And I don't want him to yell at me if I put, you know, if I tell him I haven't tested like he told me to, or if he sees the real numbers. And I'm like, why are you lying to your doctor? I mean, yeah, maybe he'll yell at you, but is it going to help you if you bring incorrect numbers, if you bring fake numbers, things you just made up, it's not going to help you. The doctor needs to see what's been happening to adjust your medications and to educate you on a better treatment. You know, maybe we need to adjust your diet. Maybe we need to adjust your exercise level. Or maybe we just need to adjust your mindset on what you're doing. Maybe you don't need any more adjustments except for up here. So it was very interesting to see how many patients write fake numbers on their logs because they don't want to be caught in the fact that they have been misbehaving. Well, when they test your A1C level, we're going to know that you've faked all those numbers because the A1C will always tell us what happened 3 months back. So, you know, when you come from the holidays and you tell the doctor, oh no, I didn't do that. I didn't eat that much. Thank you all for the hearts. I didn't eat that much. I was pretty good. If you notice, I didn't gain that much weight. And then you're like, okay, well, we'll see what your A1C says. And when we see that A1C that is way higher than it was the last time before the holidays, we know that you've been eating everything you could find and that you didn't do well-controlled decisions during the holidays. Now, is it to put you down and make you feel horrible about it? No, it's not. But it's a way to know where you're starting so that we can move forward from there. So do not fake your numbers because we will always test your A1C and we will always know that the numbers were not right. Sometimes you've also been seeing numbers that are incorrect on your meter. And this is another way of identifying, was my meter incorrect and giving me false numbers, or was I testing only at certain times and seeing good numbers in the morning only and nothing after meals? So your A1C can tell you so much information. Hey Letitia, welcome. So the higher the sugar has been on your blood, in your bloodstream, the more sugar is going to attach to your hemoglobin or your red blood cells, and then we're gonna see how much sugar attached through that 3-month period, and we can do a calculation and see exactly how well controlled you were. So the A1C is going to be reported in a percentage. Oh, good morning, Angel. And it's going to be a percentage. So the higher the percentage, the higher your sugar were for the last 3 months. And the lower the percentage, the more controlled you have been, which is awesome. Another good thing to know is that the higher the numbers, so when we have A1C levels of 9% and above, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13%, not only means your sugars have been running up in the 250s, 300, 400, 500s, it also means that your sugar problem is in the mornings. Yes, I'm so excited to be back on this platform, Letitia. So sometimes A1C can actually tell you if your problem is in the mornings, fasting sugars, and you need medication for that, or if it's being half and half. So when your A1C is between 8.5 and 9.5%, it means you've been running around 180s, 200s, and that means it's 50% your morning sugars are high, and 50% is what you've been eating. And then the closer to 7%, which is where we want to be, less than 7, it means it's mainly the food. So seeing how high your number is on the spectrum also helps you identify which part of your management you need to adjust. Is it the medication part of it? Is it the lifestyle? Is it a combination of both? So yes, please tap those hearts so that we can get more people knowing about this information. This is extremely important, ladies. You know that there is 30 million people with diabetes in America alone. And we know on Periscope, we get to see, reach people from all over the world. And these numbers are going up every single day. There's somebody getting diagnosed with diabetes or pre-diabetes. And there's just not enough information on social media of people that are actually teaching you the real truth about the disease. All you're hearing is do keto diets and do this diet and buy this product and lose this weight. It's not all about that, ladies. It's about really understanding what your body is going through and then identifying what will be the best approach for the management of your disease. So working with you to monitor the disease is gonna help you make better decisions to prevent complications. And you know that the more sugar we have lingering around in our blood, the more complications we will develop. Unfortunately, the body's not designed to carry a ton of sugar. Okay, your cells cannot be covered in sugar like a tsunami that comes and floods them every time you eat a bunch of items that are turning into sugar, like carbs. And then the cells, they don't know what to do with all that sugar. You need to know how to prevent excessive amounts of sugar lingering in your body for hours. Okay, and we're going to talk more about that in the future broadcast. So let's talk about the numbers, what the numbers mean. So somebody that doesn't have diabetes, normal levels of A1C are going to be below 5.7. So if you don't have diabetes and they ever test you for your A1C, you want to see a number less than 5.7. That means your sugars do not go up above 100, no matter what you eat. Okay? When we don't have diabetes, our body can regulate what we eat and bring it down to normal levels. But when we have pre-diabetes, now we're starting to get a little bit more difficulty in controlling and leveling down the sugars of the food that we eat, or the sugar that the body makes, because the body will make sugar on its own too. So when we're getting into the pre-diabetes, this is when they used to tell you you're on the border or you're borderline diabetic, and people don't think it's that big of a deal. Well, it is, because this is the stage where you can reverse it and not become diabetic. But people think, oh, it's not a big deal, I'm just in the border. Well, the border could be very close to the dark side. So think about this. Pre-diabetes is 5.7 to 6.4%. So if you're in this range, you're already starting to see your numbers are getting a little bit above 100, maybe about 120, no more than 126. So between 100 to 125 means that's what you've been averaging now on your sugars. You just don't test it, you don't know. And 6.4% is the border of pre-diabetes, because 6.5 is diabetes. So if I tell you you're on the border, you want to know how close to the border you are. Am I that close that if I just step a little over, I'm diabetic? Or am I at 5.7 where if I make just a few adjustments, I can go back to being normal? So you see why it's so important to know where you're at with your levels. And like I said, diabetes is now 6.5% and above. It means that you've been running 126 and above on a regular basis. Now, how do we test this? We can test it in the office. They sometimes have machines where they just prick your finger and can get a blood sample that way and put it in the machine, and we immediately know your results. Or we're gonna send it to your lab work, to the lab with all your other rest of your lab work. So they're gonna draw blood from your arm, and then they're gonna send it to the lab with all the other parameters, and we're gonna see what your A1C is. So I'm looking at my notes because there's a lot of info I'm gonna give you today. And like we said, we're not gonna utilize A1C to diagnose diabetes type 1. We're not gonna use it to diagnose gestational diabetes, which is the diabetes you get during pregnancy. We're not gonna use it also to diagnose cystic fibrosis, which is another condition that could be related to diabetes. So we are not going to utilize it during this type of illnesses because they could give you false results. So for those, we have to test other things. So the A1C can be utilized early in pregnancy because we want to see if a woman has risk factors to develop diabetes, or if they were undiagnosed diabetics before the pregnancy. There's a lot of women that didn't know they were diabetic, and then they figure it out during pregnancy because they're going to do several tests. And we want to know that the diabetes is pretty well controlled when we conceive, because this is going to affect the development of that fetus and how healthy your baby is going to be when it's born. Now, we're not going to do it after the 3 months of pregnancy because your hormones and things are going to be altered. So for that, if we want to test you for diabetes during pregnancy, we're going to do the oral glucose tolerance test, which is also called OGTT. And what that means is they're going to give you a lot of food with sugar or carbs, or they're going to give you a drink that's going to be filled with sugar, It tastes really nasty most of the time. And then they're going to test your sugars 2 hours later to see how high it got. That's how we know if you had developed diabetes during the pregnancy. Remember, gestational diabetes goes away once you deliver your baby. But if you don't make changes on your lifestyle, try to get your weight back, you and your baby are going to be at risk of developing diabetes later in life. Especially women that had gestational diabetes are probably going to develop diabetes within the 5 years after they deliver their baby if they don't get their weight back, their pre-pregnancy weight back, and they don't make adjustments to their lifestyle. Now the baby, if it was a baby that was very large, they're also going to have higher risk of developing diabetes later. Yes, you're right. The oral glucose test tastes nasty. It's horrible. I used to have it a lot when I was growing up because I had hypoglycemia. And every so often they will test us for that, for me and my sister. And God, that thing was so gross. And I kept thinking, why don't they just send me to eat pancakes with lots of syrup? I mean, that should do the same trick. But they always send us to do the glucose tolerance test, and that it was like a glucola, they called it back in the day. It was so nasty. So I don't know if they fixed it and now it tastes better, but it was not a pleasant thing to drink. Now, the other test that we can utilize to test to see if you have pre-diabetes is fasting plasma glucose. This means you gotta fast for about 8 hours, nothing to drink or eat, and then go to the lab and get your blood sugar tested. This is going to tell us if you're starting to have issues with your liver releasing too much sugar. This one doesn't come from food. This one doesn't come from you being good with your diet or not being good with your diet. This one comes from what your body does when you're sleeping. So the higher that number, the 126 and above on the fasting sugars, means you have diabetes. If it's between 101 and 125, you're in the pre-diabetic stage. Okay? Let's see what else. Now, there's going to be certain conditions that are going to affect your A1C levels. Let's say hemoglobin. It's going to affect your hemoglobin, and we might not get the accurate numbers that we need. So when people have sickle cell disease, or they're on treatments to develop more erythrocytes, which is more red blood cells, or they're on hemodialysis, or they had a transfusion, a blood transfusion, then your A1C levels are going to be altered. So we cannot use the A1C test during those times because we were going to get false results. Also, if you are having a condition where you're having anemia, you're low in iron, now your A1C test is going to be giving you false results as well. So, and this happens sometimes when you're having kidney failure, you do not develop or build iron like you used to. Also if you have liver disease. So your doctor needs to know all of these things to make sure that if he's testing for A1C, that we're going to get the right number and the accurate information. If not, we have to test you in other ways. So what number should we have? Let's say, didn't know that. We'll let my mom watch this later. Awesome. Yes, if your family member has diabetes, have them watch these videos. Because we're going to discuss a lot of things that people don't have time to read, don't take the time to read, and the doctors don't have time to tell you about it. The doctors have way too many patients, too many things to do. They don't have time to be talking about all this. So that is why diabetes educators like myself are going to be helping you understand a lot more about this condition. And again, if you're not part of my private group on Facebook, you can go to bit.ly/VIP Beauty Bar, or you can find it as by the name Future Life Artists Living with Diabetes. So there's going to be instances where we want you to have an A1C level as close as possible to normal. That will mean between 5.7 to 7%. And we want you to have this number if you are very young, if your life expectancy is very high. So when you're young, you have a lot of years to live, so we can push you to have very tight control. But when your life expectancy is starting to decrease, like maybe you're in your 70s, 80s, 90s, well, we're not going to have you have such strict numbers because it's not going to make a huge difference. Sorry, somebody was calling. And we could actually push you to have a heart attack or a stroke if you have very low A1C levels. When we push you to have A1C levels that are very close to normal, we could cause you to have some more hypoglycemia. So your sugars can run a little bit lower than we would like it to be. And when you're an elderly person, you can't manage those low numbers the way you used to. If you have been having long-standing diabetes, you've had it for many, many years, and you've been having a hard time reaching a lower A1C level, then we're going to have you do a little bit higher A1C level, maybe around 8%. So the elderlies, we're okay with 8% because it's going to be safer for them to have a little bit higher sugars than getting too close to normal numbers. And then also people that have severe hypoglycemia or inability to sense it. This is called hypoglycemia unawareness. There's people that they lose their sensors in their body that will let them know that their sugars are low. This means they don't get any symptoms. They don't get the sweatiness, they don't get the shaking, the foggy mind, they don't feel like they're gonna pass out. They don't have any symptoms that their sugars are low, therefore their sugars could drop dramatically and they can just, go into a diabetic coma because of low blood sugars. So we don't want those people either to have very low A1C levels because we don't want them to take the risk of having hypoglycemia and not feel it. Yes, we better go get checked. And ladies, if you have diabetes in your family, this is a hereditary disease. If you're African American, Latin, if you're Latin descent, Hispanic, we have a high tendency of developing diabetes anyways. If you're past your 40s, now you're getting into the age where you're gonna have more issues with insulin production. If you're overweight and you have developed insulin resistance, you're not going to be more prone to diabetes. If you have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, high triglycerides, all of this is going to cause an increased chance for you to develop diabetes. So you have to go get tested. I get tested every 3 months because my entire family has diabetes and I have already gained some weight and that has put me into the pre-diabetic stage. So now I need to get tested more often. Another reason we're not going to have you have strict A1C levels, low A1C levels, is if you have chronic kidney disease, nerve problems, or cardiovascular disease. Because all of this can cause you to have more issues if your sugars are very close to normal versus if they're running a little bit higher. But unless you have these reasons, you do not have a reason or an excuse to have high A1C levels. Most people don't. So, the higher the A1C level, the more complications you will develop with diabetes. We all know the complications: amputations, neuropathy, which is nerve damage, kidney disease, kidney failure, ending up on dialysis. Heart disease and stroke is the #1 cause of death for diabetes. It's not amputations, it's not kidney disease, it's heart attacks and strokes. And more people in their 40s are dying from a sudden heart attack or a stroke. They didn't know they had diabetes. So it is so important that you get tested, that you get this A1C tested to see if you're getting close to having diabetes, and if you're just in the pre-diabetic stage, that you can make an effort to reverse it and not become diabetic. And if you already are diabetic, that you can keep it as tightly controlled as possible so that these complications may happen later on in life and not right at the beginning of the disease. Diabetes is a very preventable disease. And once you have it, it's also very controllable. It's a matter of you making a choice. Do I want to feel healthy and enjoy my life, or do I want to live my life eating everything I want and feeling miserable the rest of the time? It's just a choice. So I hope that this helped you understand A1C levels better. Remember, this is how much sugar attaches to your hemoglobin. And every 3 months we get new hemoglobin, so that's why we test it every 3 months. And the higher the number, the more complications you will develop. The lower the number, the healthier you will be. And if your A1C levels are higher than 9%, it means your problem is in the mornings. Your fasting sugars are too high, your liver is making too much sugar. This is only controlled with medication. If you're close to the 7%, 8, 7.5, 7%, your problem is the food. If you adjust your diet, your carb amount, and your levels of exercise, you're gonna be fine. And if you're in the in-betweens, between 8 and 9, it means 50% is medication related, that you're gonna need medication adjustment, and the other 50% is your diet. So knowing where you're at in the spectrum of A1C is gonna keep you very healthy, or it's gonna make you very sick. There's no in-betweens here. So I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope that you shared it with somebody. And we're going to be seeing each other more often. And remember, if you want to get into deeper conversations and learn more about how to control this disease, you got to be in my private group, bit.ly/VIP Beauty Bar. And it's also on the description of the video. So thank you so much for the hearts, and I will see you very soon. Bye now.